John Maxwell is a pastor and an author who's written more than 100 books and is also named the #1 leadership expert in the world by Inc. magazine. He went from serving as a pastor of a small church in Ohio to becoming an expert at leadership and a best-selling author who sold more than 30 million books. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 for my top 10, top 10, 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more, and you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, John Maxwell, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Know your strengths.
One day I realized that when you counsel people, you work on their weaknesses. And when you equip people, you work on their strengths.
Oh, that's good. Oh.
And the moment I went from working on weaknesses to working on strengths, I was a rock star with strengths. Because you show me your strength and I'm going to give you a game plan and let's get going, because I'm a natural equipper, not a natural counselor. Yes. Nothing wrong with counseling, it's just not my gift. You with me? And what did they teach me in college? They taught me how to administrate.
Yeah.
So I'm in my, I've got my little country church, I'm doing administration. Well, there's no return there. I mean, my gosh. And one day I'm waking up and I'm saying, wait a minute, this isn't working. I got to go get me some volunteers to do this administration so I can get back. And so it's trial and error. And sometimes I think we go to people like, Ed, if I'm trying to find out my strengths and you and I know each other really well, I may come to you and say, okay, well, talk to me. What do I do well?
Yes.
Sometimes we don't understand our own strengths, and it takes somebody that really is a good friend that knows us well that can say, well, I think you're really good in this area, but you got to find them.
Yes.
And the good news is everybody has gifts.
Rule number 2, maximize your time.
When you manage something, you do so to keep it going. Well, you don't need to keep time going. You don't even need to watch it. You can be completely unaware of it. You can go to sleep. Doesn't matter. Time just continually moves. Doesn't need you. It doesn't need me. It just keeps moving. We don't need to do time management because there's nothing to manage. It's automatic. It continually moves. What we need to do is priority management. With the time that is continually slipping away from us, we need to manage our priorities to maximize the time we have. So don't manage your time. Maximize your time. How? By doing the things that are the most important to do at that moment. Make every day your masterpiece.
Rule number 3, build credibility.
If you can make things happen for yourself, you now have the credibility to make things happen for other people.
Whoa.
If I'm not successful, there is no appeal for you to follow me. I tell people all the time, success is the credibility of a leader to lead. Because you think about it, nobody ever said, oh my gosh, I'm financially in deep weeds. Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to go call my buddy Joe. He's been bankrupt 3 times.
Right,
hey Joe,
right.
No, you don't follow Joe. Joe's been bankrupt 3 times. You got to go find somebody that's successful with money.
So
I'm going to get a divorce. Oh my gosh, I'm going to call Jack. He's been divorced 4 times.
Right.
Jack, help me with my marriage. You see, people, when they need help, the first thing they think about is who is better than me that I can follow. And so the credibility of a leader as far as to lead is that they're successful. I mean, if I'm successful, I say, hey, I'd want to join my team. Well, of course. I mean, if LeBron James was in the room right now, LeBron says, we're going to play a little basketball.
Right.
And LeBron says, I'll pick, and then John will pick. Well, when LeBron's there, you've got your hand up and say, LeBron, pick me, because you're going to win if you get LeBron. Right. And every time I'm getting ready to pick, you're diving behind the chair.
It's a fact.
You don't want to be on my team. You're going to lose on my team. And so what I tell people all the time is that the first thing you've got to do is you got to get good yourself. Why would I ever think that I should lead somebody if I'm not any good at it?
Rule number 4, focus.
What I discovered about focusing in on a goal or something you want to accomplish is that the moment that you focus in on what you want to do, that's when you begin to have energy to do it. A distracted person lacks energy. And when they get to the thing they need to be focusing in on, they don't have the energy to give. But when a person says, no, this is the one thing I'm going to do, and they set their mind to it, they set their eyes on it, and they set their hand to do it, all of a sudden, energy begins to fill their life. Why? Because what you focus on, what you concentrate on, what you desire to accomplish, once your eyes are fixed on that, it begins to energize you, and you begin to see the possibility of making it happen.
Also, if you want to have more confidence, check out my 254 series. It's free. The link to join is in the description below.
I've never met a person who was not successful that didn't have a great amount of self-discipline within their life.
Rule number 5, have a growth mindset.
I think there are people who would be born with what I would call leadership leanings. They would have a tendency to lean or be gifted in that area, just like somebody's gifted in music or whatever. So I think that starts it, and I think I have that. But then I grew up in a leader's home. In fact, my father is 98, still living.
Whoa.
And in fact, until 2 years ago, was still working full time and was a terrific leader. So I grew up in a culture and environment of leadership. And so when I look at myself where I am today, so much of it was caught from not only my father, but I've had great mentors throughout my life. In fact, while we're out here in Los Angeles, every time I come out here, I think of John Wooden, who mentored me for the last probably 11 years of his life.
Whoa.
And in fact, when you talked about the sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, he did the foreword on that book. And he just loved the idea of how to get back up after you fail. So when you look at my home background, the leadership experiences that I had, because a person learns to lead by practicing leadership. And at a very early age, I was practicing leadership. And so it all comes together. And then when I began to realize everything rises and falls on leadership, I became really intentional, Tom, of developing my leadership skills. So I can remember, for example, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 26. I heard Earl Nightingale say on a tape that if you would spend 1 hour a day, every day, on one subject for 5 years, you could become an expert on that subject. So I said, wow, I want to become an expert in leadership. So for the next 5 years, I spent an hour every day reading about leadership, talking to leaders, asking leaders questions, practicing leadership, but it really was consistent. And when I started that process, I was thinking 5 years. Earl Nightingale said I could become an expert in 5 years. Okay, wow, leadership expert, hello. And so I kept, I was kind of like doing countdown, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. I'm thinking I'm Cape Canaveral, okay. But something happened to me about halfway through that 5-year process. Instead of keeping asking myself, how long will it take? How long will it take? How long will it take? One day I began to realize how I was growing as a leader and the change that was happening within me. And I stopped asking the question, how long will it take? And I started asking the question, how far can I go? And everything changed that day. I realized that you can set goals and have 5-year goals, whatever, but I changed from a goal mindset to a growth mindset. And the fact that if I would be intentional in the areas of growth that would have the return and would fit who I was, then I could really be successful and help a lot of people. And that was a kind of a shift for me. And so when I wrote my first leadership book, I thought I would write one leadership book and I'd be done. I didn't think 100 books later. I had a lady the other day said, "You've written more books than I've ever read in my life." You know what I mean? But I didn't have any intention to write a lot of books. But growth allows you to continue to expand yourself and your world until there's just so much more that you know and so much more that you want to share. So, my journey has been really one of understanding that if I every day intentionally grow, the question is just how far can I go? And I don't know that answer. I'm still growing. I'm still moving towards that finish line.
Rule number 6, find happiness within yourself.
So many times we miss happiness because we think it's out there. And so we pursue happiness. And what we need to discover is the fact that happiness is not a place that you go or a status that you attain. Happiness is an inside job. That when I am content, happy, satisfied, pleased within myself, that everybody and everything will bring happiness around me. Just as if I'm displeased on the inside, there's nothing that will bring me pleasure or happiness on the outside. Happiness is not an outside job. It's an inside job. Happiness is not something that someone brings to me or gives to me. It's something I bring to myself and give myself. So give yourself today the gift of happiness. It's your choice. And guess what? The moment that you are happy within, there's a whole bunch of happiness that you're going to experience on the outside.
Rule number 7, ask questions.
In the beginning, I couldn't find anybody to mentor me in leadership. I mean, they didn't know who I was. And so books became my mentors. And then I did something that I just encourage everybody to do. I've done this for 40 years, is I began to have what I call learning lunches. And I loved in your green room, your statement on learning. I just love it. But I would go out, I would take somebody like you, Tom, out, and I'd buy the lunch. I didn't even eat. I just had questions. And I would ask you leadership questions. And I would...
What are some of your go-to leadership questions?
Well, the first question is, I always look at somebody and I ask them, tell me about your greatest failure. And the reason I ask that is because I think that the character of a person comes out of their failures, not out of their success. And I think that the bedrock part of foundation of leadership is character, and you build on it. And so I want to know about, what tell me about a mess up in your life. And I've had so many of them. I mean, when people ask me that question, it's kind of like, which one do I pull out? But I really like to talk to people about their losses, because it just really tells me a lot about who the person really is. I'm not sure success does, but I know failure does. So I ask that. I ask one of the questions I ask them is, who do you know that I should know? And that's led me to meet some incredible people in my life that somebody else opened the door that I wouldn't have had. So I just find that in asking questions, in fact, I wrote a book one time, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. I just find in asking questions, that's the way that I can grow and develop myself the best.
Rule number 8, go with the flow.
We all like to think that we really do flow, that we kind of move easy and we are easy, and people look at us and it's just kind of soothing to their soul to have us around. But to be honest with you, many times we don't flow, and when we don't, it's because a surprise or something that we didn't like, and sometimes my flow doesn't go. It just kind of stops right where it is because there's something happening that's not easy for me to move with. My father, when I was young, said, John, it's not what happens to you that counts, it's what happens in you. You're going to have a lot of things happen to you that aren't good, but if your attitude and spirit is right, you can keep going, you can keep flowing. So when we stop that flow in our life, it's almost always because something rubbed us the wrong way, something surprised us. We don't like what happened. I would just encourage you to remember my dad's advice. It's not what happens to you, it's what happens in you. The moment that you choose to do the right thing on the inside, guess what? You begin to flow.
Rule number 9, find your sweet spot.
I tell people, if you want to be highly successful, you've got to get into what I call the top 5%.
Okay.
So you got 100 people. You got 100 people here in whatever chosen profession you've got. You've got to be in the top 5.
Yes.
You got to get there. And you can only get to the top 5 if you're in your sweet spot. You can't get to the top 5 working on weaknesses. You can't get to the top 5 if I'm not in the area of my giftedness. So you got to find out what you're good at, because that'll give you, if you're committed and if you got a good strategy and all this other, you got a good team around you, then that'll allow you to get in that top 5. And once you're in that top 5%, you're in good shape. You're going to do very well. And I tell, that doesn't matter what your profession is, you got to get in the top 5%, and you can only get in the top 5% if you're in your position, if you're in your sweet spot, if you're in your gift.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is follow your own dreams.
When I wrote my book, Put Your Dream to the Test, one of the questions I asked to make sure that you have a valid dream is this question. Is my dream really my dream? Or is it someone else's? You see, most of the time, our dream journey begins not with our dream, but with someone else's, usually our parents. They look at us when they're very young and they kind of have a little dream for us. And they start planting those seeds and we kind of go off on that little pathway. And pretty soon we're living maybe their dream, but not ours. But there comes a time in your life where the dream cost. And it's at that moment we find out whether we own it or we borrowed it. You see, if I borrow the dream from you or someone else, I won't pay that price. But if it's my dream, I mean, it's really my dream, then I'll pay that price. The ownership question is a great question because it's foundational to our success. If I own it, I can achieve it. The moment I don't own it, there's no way I can ever accomplish what I want to accomplish.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and what are you going to do to take action on it this week? When you write down what day, what time, and what place you're going to take action on something, you have a 91% chance of following through versus just 35% if you got motivated but never wrote down a plan. And when you share your plan and have public accountability, it raises your chances of following through even higher. So that's what I want to do today for you guys. You watch this video. What was your single biggest takeaway and what is your plan to take action on it this week? Let me know. Put it down in the comments below.
You're in the people business. You tell a really great story about how one of your leaders had walked by a group of people and not said anything, and you taught him, that was a real missed opportunity. And then when you came in today, you literally went to each person and introduced yourself. What is that power of connection?
Well, I think, first of all, it's valuing people. You have an incredible work here, and every person here in this studio makes it happen. And one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And the moment that you understand that the people that you have around you, they're either your number one asset or, to be honest with you, they can be your number one liability. But the moment that you understand that and begin to value people, I think that is what creates the connection. Because the moment that, I think we all know, don't you, Tom, don't you think when a person values you and when a person doesn't value you? And so I think that giving value to people and expressing that to them is the common ground that builds relationships. And so, when I came in the studio, I wanted to meet everybody because you've got an incredible, successful program, and I want to meet the people who help you be who you are.
If you want to change your life for free in the next 30 days, check the link right here below me. Or if you want 10 more awesome rules from Brendan Burchard, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.